When you hear the word heritage, what comes to mind? You might be thinking of old buildings, the wonders of the natural world, or the cufflinks left to you by your legendary great-granddad. The truth is, heritage can be all these things and more. Heritage is what we inherit and also choose to protect and celebrate. Determining what heritage is important enough to protect is a complex process, but it's essential work because heritage belongs to all of us. For more information about Victorian heritage and how it is protected, see the Heritage Information Pack accompanying this video.
Good evening. I'm Professor Philip Goad, Chair of the Heritage Council of Victoria. This evening I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I wish to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you tonight on the lands of the people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here tonight. The Heritage Council is an independent statutory authority that makes decisions in relation to the Victorian Heritage Register. It provides advice in relation to cultural heritage protection and promotes and celebrates Victoria's heritage. Our mission is simple but powerful: to make sure Victoria's heritage is valued, protected and enjoyed, not just today but for generations to come. Heritage can be buildings, objects, collections, archaeological remains, gardens, shipwrecks, and much more. And the theme of this year's Open House Melbourne, Stories of the City, is very apt indeed. From the modesty of La Trobe's tiny prefabricated cottage to the grace of the Royal Exhibition Building in all of its World Heritage glory, a structure that was designed for the great international exhibitions of 1880 and 1888, and a structure which put Melbourne's story on par with the other great exhibition-era cities of Chicago and Paris. Each building on the Victorian Heritage Register and in this city of ours has a tale to tell. When we walk through Melbourne, we don't just see buildings. We see the layers of lives lived and communities built. Heritage, it's a cliche, it's not just bricks and mortar, it's the pride of place, the memories we share and the spaces we use to exchange ideas and the way in which we build culture. It's also in the collections that we preserve, the artefacts that help us understand who we are and how we got here. Many of you may not know that the Victorian Heritage Register also includes fascinating and significant collections. Take, for example, the Australian Queer Archives, the largest collection of its kind in Australia, looked after by one of the longest-standing organisations dedicated to preserving and celebrating LGBTIQ+ histories. We were thrilled to add that collection to the register late last year. But other collections, also on the register, tell different but equally powerful stories. There's the collection related to the World War II internment camps in Tatura. Another collection records the beautiful workplace of artists Napier and Christian Waller. And there's also the very recently listed Harry Johns collection, which chronicles the life and legacy of a major tent boxing troupe which travelled the country's show circuit from the 1920s to the 1960s. None of these collections would be preserved without the hard work of passionate people who care about where we've come from and actually where we're going. Tonight we'll explore another of these remarkable collections, telling part of Melbourne's unique story. The Heritage Council has proudly supported this heritage address since 2009, and we're delighted it is now an annual flagship event which formally closes the Open House Melbourne weekend. And now it's my very great pleasure to welcome to the stage Victoria's Minister for Planning, the Honourable Sonia Kilkenny, who will introduce tonight's speakers. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Philip, and it's terrific to be here tonight. And I too begin by, of course, acknowledging that we gather on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my deep respects to elders past and present. Can I please acknowledge Professor Philip Goad, Chair of the Heritage Council of Victoria. We've got Sally Capp, former Lord Mayor of Melbourne, Eddie Butler-Bowdon, Collections Manager, City of Melbourne, Sam Redston, Chair, Open House Melbourne, Tanya Davidge, Executive Director, Open House Melbourne, and to everyone who has braved the elements tonight to come out to this wonderful presentation. Thank you, Philip, for the warm introduction, and it is such a pleasure to be here to return for this annual Heritage Address and to help close another incredible Open House Melbourne weekend. Victoria is indeed home to some of Australia's most significant and beloved heritage places, living reminders of the people, cultures and stories that have shaped our state across generations. But as we all know, heritage is not static. It's certainly not a closed book. It's a living, breathing conversation across time, enriched by new voices, new discoveries, and the evolving stories of our people and places. I know this weekend, nearly 190 events brought tens of thousands of people into buildings, laneways, parks, and rooftops to explore these stories, not just as spectators, but as participants in our shared cultural legacy. And I think that's what makes Open House Melbourne so very special. Our built environment isn't meant to be admired only from afar. We're meant to step inside it, walk through it, and understand the lives and ideas that shaped it, feel its history and its future through the stories we hear and the ones we bring. The Victorian Government has proudly supported Open House Melbourne, Australia's largest architecture and design festival, for many years, and it's the tireless work of volunteers that makes it all possible. To every single volunteer who gave their time and energy over this weekend, thank you so much. Open House reminds us that architecture and heritage aren't simply about structures, they're about people. They're about memory, identity, and the stories etched into every corner of our built environment. And this year's theme, Stories of the City, couldn't be more fitting. Every building has a backstory, every laneway has layers, and every object in a heritage collection carries with it a human experience, a moment in time, a perspective, a decision, a dream. Our Victorian Government remains committed to protecting and celebrating Victoria's cultural heritage. We see heritage as an opportunity to connect, to learn, to reflect, and to ensure all Victorians see themselves in the story of our great state. And what this weekend showed us is that our history is wide-ranging, from iconic sites like, of course, our Royal Exhibition Building and Carlton Gardens, to local gems like Edgewater Towers in St Kilda. Together, they tell a layered, complex, and always compelling story of who we are. I hope you were able to experience some of these places firsthand over the weekend and took a moment to reflect on your own place in the story of our great city. It's now my great pleasure to formally close Open House Melbourne 2025 and to help introduce one of its most cherished traditions in collaboration with the Heritage Council of Victoria, the annual Heritage Address. The Heritage Council continues to play a critical role in safeguarding Victoria's heritage, curating a register of more than 3,000 places and objects, and championing the cultural and architectural life of our state. And tonight we are in for a real treat. Two passionate and deeply knowledgeable Melburnians, former Lord Mayor Sally Capp and City of Melbourne curator Eddie Butler-Bowdon, will take us inside one of the most fascinating collections in the country. The City of Melbourne's art and heritage collection is vast, more than 13,000 objects strong. It's eclectic, unexpected, and uniquely Melbourne. From Melbourne artworks like Vault to photographs of potholes, it's a collection built on stories both celebrated and overlooked. And that's the heart of our heritage. not just what we remember, but how we remember it, what we preserve, and whose stories we choose to tell. So thank you again for being part of Open House Melbourne 2025. And now can you please join in welcoming the speakers for this year's Heritage Address, Sally Capp and Eddie Butler-Bowdon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the Minister for a brilliant opening. I think you captured the spirit and presence of this Heritage Address brilliantly. Eddie and I are absolutely delighted to be with you on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung land this evening, and I'm going to sit down so you can sit down too.
Okay.
And thank you so much for making the time to join us in this conversation. Now, it's a warning, really. We've both got notes because we could talk about this collection all night. And the point this evening is to share stories with you about this very impressive art and heritage collection kept at Town Hall. More than 13,000 items, as the Minister said. It is the biggest collection of its kind in Australia. And whilst we would have loved to have welcomed all of you into Level 4 this evening, unfortunately we couldn't create capacity for that. So we're encouraging all of you to make the time, if you haven't already, to join a tour. Judy's here, who does the best tours actually, and get yourself over there to have a look at it in detail. But we're really pleased to be sharing the stories this evening. And it is about heritage. As Philip said, it's not just the bricks and mortar, it's really the stories behind the buildings and the art and the artefacts and why they were important to us at the time. And importantly, part of our collection is how our views and our emotions and our attitudes have changed over time. I think that makes it so dynamic. But before we get going, I need to tell you that Eddie has just come back from an excavation in Georgia, which I think is absolutely fascinating. So, Eddie, you've been on an archaeological dig. Tell us more.
Look, it was absolutely fascinating. It truly was. It was wonderful. I went with Melbourne University, who has a relationship with the Georgian National Museum. And I was there for 3 weeks, went for a couple more. People always ask, so what did you find? What did you find? We're not really searching for, this is not Tutankhamun 2025. You're more searching for knowledge, and that comes in the form of pottery sherds, bones, and obsidian, the volcanic glass. But it was a fantastic dig. And the head archaeologist at the Georgian National Museum said to me that the site that we were working on was the most complex he's ever seen. It was like a mix of Bronze Age and medieval. And just when we thought that that's all that was going on there, when we dug down about a metre deep into what was thought to be the medieval section, what should turn up but a 1928 5 kopeck Soviet coin. I thought it might have been dug there deliberately, but no, I was told it would have barely bought half a loaf of bread at the time. But yes, it was fantastic.
Wonderful. And heritage. And heritage. And also you've spent so many years digging around our art and artefacts collection. I thought that was a great way to start. Now, we're not going back to the Bronze Age this evening, but we thought we'd go back a little bit to the story of how we have this collection over in Level 4 of Town Hall. We have a building at 602 Little Bourke Street, and when I became Lord Mayor, in 2018, one of the key actions that I wanted to take was to be able to provide more housing for those experiencing homelessness in our city. And so we did a scan across available property that the City of Melbourne owned. And one of the maxims that we applied was highest and best use as we looked at how our buildings were being utilised. And it really became sort of core to what happened next. I stumbled across this building where Eddie and his team spent most of their time. It was a very old building. Most of it was derelict and had dust. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
But about 3 floors had...
five.
Oh, 5,
we
sorry.
had 2 of them. Yeah.
No, but okay, so on 2 floors we had our art and artefacts stored. And mostly the only time the public ever saw that collection was at Melbourne Open House.
That's
and for
the truth.
rest of the time, the doors were closed. And so when we thought of that maxim of highest and best use, as discouraged and frustrated as Eddie was at the start when we said, look, we think we might use this building to provide safe, secure housing, it wasn't that you disagreed with the purpose, but very concerned about what would happen to the collection. But really the idea then came that if we really wanted to show that we value the heritage and the stories of our city, then we needed to give more sunshine and oxygen and love to this collection. And so we then went on the hunt for an appropriate place to put the collection so that more people could interact with it and appreciate it. And we found a lot of very dodgy rabbit warren offices on level 4 at Town Hall, and we decided to convert that floor into a purpose-built facility that could preserve and protect the collection, but also make it available to be seen and to be used, which we'll talk more about tonight. So you can see the wonderful make room there. I've got too many jobs tonight. I'm timekeeping, I'm in charge of slides, and I'm keeping Eddie on track. So Tanya, if it all goes terrible, let us know. So that's how we came to be at Town Hall, and we really want not just people at the City of Melbourne as an organisation, but the people of Melbourne to be able to fully appreciate and utilise this incredible 13,000 strong collection of art and artefacts. So Eddie, tell us a little bit about Town Hall and the rooms at Town Hall and how you brought it all together.
I loved earlier on when the Minister described the collection as eclectic, because it is nothing if not that, as well as outdoor components, outdoor art, public art and memorials. It takes in just a huge range of paintings, photographs, city gifts, just sort of like Moomba material. There's one room there that we have which is correctly called Miscellaneous Melbourne, but we colloquially call it the men's shed, because it's just sort of like got all sorts of things in there. But yeah, the one strand that pulls it all together is Melbourne, that it all emanates from and speaks to Melbourne. Yeah.
And that's one of the other lovely things that happens, the magic when people come in and look at the collection, is that people have such personal memories and recollections of many of the objects that they can then share stories with the people they're with. It's just so lovely to see. So we call it a living collection because literally it often walks around the streets of Melbourne. The collection is on level 4, but it's throughout the buildings that the City of Melbourne owns. And we do have exhibitions from time to time, whether it's in City Gallery or in other places. And we want people to experience it very much as a living collection, the diversity and the breadth of its representations of Melbourne life. So Eddie, just pick up on that theme of it literally walking around the streets of Melbourne for me.
Well, I mean, really our entire Moomba collection has essentially gone for a stroll up and down Swanston Street, including the Kings and Queens outfit. One other item that we have, which I particularly like, so I think it goes to the heart of the way this collection behaves, is a makoshi, which is a Japanese shrine, and annually, and it came to us from our sister city, Osaka, and annually that makoshi gets borrowed by the Japan Foundation and then walked up and down Swanston Street for Moomba. Now, this is highly unusual for a collection. Usually collections, once they own things, they never let them out under any circumstances. And certainly we're very careful about our material, but we also like to see it get out there one way or another.
We also, as I said, use the collection in city buildings, and I really encourage you next time you're in one of our libraries or facilities to look at the walls and take an interest. We were absolutely delighted with our newest library. I think I've got the clicker going now. Our newest library, Nam Nagu, at Queen Victoria Market, to make that a central place, obviously, for curiosity and for knowledge and for learning of all sorts, but very much a focus of our collection of art by Aboriginal artists. And in the collection at Nam Nagu, we have new commissions, and Marie Clark really features in some brilliant ways through new commissions, and it's, I think, one of the great gifts of the City of Melbourne is to be able to commission new work. And then and you can see there an amazing eel catcher that's part of the children's playground in the Nam Nagu Library. If you haven't been to the library, it's absolutely spectacular. Please do visit. And then some of the art and photography from our collection featured on the walls there, which is spectacular.
Indeed, it is. Yeah, I mean, as you say, the collection is, I mean, many of the works for Nam Nagu were commissioned for that and have then travelled into the collection. But a lot of the other times we're actually taking the collection out, the pre-existing collection out, to various community centres, libraries and so on throughout the City of Melbourne, as well as all of the kind of central buildings. So, yeah, Town Hall itself on all 4 floors.
So that's a bit of a gallop through ways in which we use the collection, but we want to go back and talk about how did the collection even start? And it was very much based on civics and ceremony. And at Town Hall, let me go, I'm really sorry, I am trying to get the clicker to work well. There's a bit of a preview of what's coming next. Oops. Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. I've got to that. Eddie's alarm's going off. Anyway, it started by collecting the records and paraphernalia of our mayors and records of our business of the time. I'll keep playing with the slides. I'm going to let Eddie talk a little bit about that.
Oh, look, yeah, I mean, the notion of a collection really evolved much later on. We got there. Yeah. I promise I'm not mansplaining to you there. That's a little bit how it looks. But anyway, no, look, it started up very much around what was sort of broadly considered the important old stuff connected with council. So Lord Mayoral robes, Lord Mayoral chains, and also paper-based documents of some of importance in one way or another. Gradually, over time, it has broadened to take in sort of the activities of the City of Melbourne more broadly. And in turn, it's then gone outside that altogether to start to actually work with the City of Melbourne and essentially bring Melbourne into the collection.
I really love those rooms because, one, you can go and if you live in the City of Melbourne, you can look up your address and see how that space has been used over the decades.
Yeah.
And also with the red books, and we have many throughout, we had lots in the Lord Mayor's office as well, you can look back on past debates and it's amazing how often issues like cleanliness of the city
Yep.
and rubbish
Yep.
and many other issues come up regularly throughout the years, and of course ways in which we've responded to those challenges. Now I'm going to try this. No? Yes. So we wanted to talk about portraits.
Portraits. Look, I always say that love them or hate them, they are the cornerstone of the collection. They go well back into the 19th century, and they've been a bit sort of hit and miss in that it's often assumed that every Lord Mayor has had a portrait painted of them, but that's actually not the case at all, probably somewhere between a third and a half. I definitely think that some of the more recent portraits have improved plenty. The Jiawei Shen portrait of John So was a good portrait, no question of it. And then there's the portrait to the right, which is being seen really for the first time publicly today. Yeah.
It is, yeah. It is, and I'm so glad we've been able to share it, because I think what this slide shows is also how values and elements that we want reflected in portraits have changed over time as well. William Condon, the first Lord Mayor of Melbourne, used to stare at me every day. We had him moved out of my office and into the hallway so he could become part of the public tours of Town Hall. But there are a lot of portraits like William's, and I think that really speaks to how power was, I'm going to say, used and perceived at the time. Very authoritarian and very male. And I look at the John So portrait and I see the way our community has changed to reflect migration and still a strong heritage with our city, but leaders of the city changing and also then incorporating the possum cloak, which was a gift to the city from the Wurundjeri people. It's absolutely magnificent. And that was the first time that theme of our Indigenous heritage had been incorporated. And then for me, I really wanted, can you believe, colour? But more than that, I wanted to still respect the traditions and the institution of the role of Lord Mayor and the City of Melbourne, and the cloaks are absolutely, or the robes are absolutely magnificent in their embroidery. But what was really important for me was to be outside and to reflect elements that are really important to our community, our past, our present and our future. For me, that is very much being in nature and our quest always to have nature, to respect and to nurture our parks and the role that they play. And of course, for our future, from my perspective, it's very important to me that nature's right at the forefront of how we respond to challenges from climate change. So I think Kristen did an absolutely brilliant job. I'm honoured to have a portrait. As Eddie said, not everybody has one. It hasn't been officially unveiled. Well, it has now, I guess.
Portraits often have sort of followed a very kind of tight language, so that most of the portraits, the Melbourne portraits, show someone, a man, with a document. And the document really is there to convey their importance. In Sydney, they go for a different device. I've seen their portraits, and their portraits have their Lord Mayors either wearing, or holding white leather gloves. And I think this means...
I hadn't thought of that. Oh.
I think this means that they were far too important to get their hands dirty. But, yeah.
Very good. No secret messages like that in mine at all. But I'm really pleased for Kristen as well. It's fantastic to have a female artist as well, which is fabulous.
Absolutely.
So we're going to move on to... Thank you for whoever did that. Yay! Okay, good. I'll put this down. We're going to move on to another part of civics and ceremony, which is the ancient art, if you like, of embroidery and coat of arms and the way that they're combined here. Eddie.
Sure. So the image on the left shows our 1880 Prince's Bridge with featured on its side there our coat of arms. Now, the coat of arms was designed in 1842, which is the same year that the City of Melbourne Council was incorporated. And several councillors put their heads together and really sort of focused on the economy of the new colonial city. And you can see top left, they have a sheep for wool. The whale is there for oil, for lamp oil. The cow is there not for meat, not for transport, but for tallow, which can be turned into candles. So this is all very much pre-refrigeration and very tightly about the economic produce of the not quite yet legally speaking colony, and how they can be transported. So, yeah, that coat of arms sort of held sway for many, many years. There was a major change in 1970 when the London Heraldry Society declared that it was all wrong to have put the whale top right, that what you're supposed to have is both of the water symbols, so the ship, the means for export, right, and the whale should both be along the bottom. And no less a personage than the Queen herself turned up in Melbourne in 1970 and with a document proclaiming that from here on, this is what your coat of arms should. But, you know, I think it speaks to how kind of like rough around the edges early Melbourne was. On the right-hand side, you've got something completely different. They are embroideries done, as you can see, by Fina Fischera. And Fina has taken an interest in embroidery over many years, and she became fascinated with the coat of arms, and it was not a kind of like obvious fit in the sense that, as has already been discussed, they're very much a kind of Anglo founding myth, if you like, expression of a economic mythology. Fina's interest in them was in sort of busting them out of the shield that you see up there. She also kind of like circled back on the colonial side of things by actually purchasing the beads on a trip to India, another colony, and she's completely sort of disassembled, if you like, the coat of arms. And Fina is actually a work colleague of ours at the City of Melbourne, so in no sense was this anything other. It was sort of like a rolling, informal commission. with absolutely no money attached, of course, for FINA. But yeah, the result was fantastic. A lot of appreciation.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're going to morph into the collection in the way that it demonstrates values and changing values, and we've touched on this already. It's an important part of heritage. And this is a Russian tea set that was presented to us when we became a sister city with St. Petersburg about 2.5 decades ago. Interesting fact, Vladimir Putin was actually the head of International who negotiated the sister city relationship with us. So funny how things turn. Anyway, one of the elements of the collection is that it's important to us that we retain items that may have become controversial in the meantime. I think portraits are a somewhat good example of that, and this is a good example because some of you may remember that when Russia declared war on Ukraine, we had a big debate at Town Hall about the relationship with Russia and action that we could take to show that we did not support Russia's act of war. And in a notice of motion, we decided to revoke our sister city relationship with St. Petersburg. Now, this tea set had always sat outside the Lord Mayor's office, where we have items from all of our sister cities to reflect and respect those cultures and the relationships that we have. They're close working relationships. But we have removed the Russian tea set, of course. It is still in the collection, so you can see it, because we think it's important to still reflect the past, even if relationships, values, attitudes, views have changed in the meantime. They spark very important discussions, and it is part of our history. Now, Eddie, you like a good protest, so tell us about this one.
I'm what's it called? An ambulance chaser, but to protest. Yeah, this one, look, this is an important one. This was for the voice referendum of late 2023. There was a Sunday it wasn't a protest so much as a kind of rallying call, really. Very well attended, walked straight up Swanston Street and finished at Fed Square. And easily the best protest banner, or rather the best banner, was this one here, made by Debbie Codry and Becca Hanna. And it was absolutely huge. And you can see there is Debbie on the left holding it. And they had put in a huge amount of work into this textile banner. And I presented myself. Look, with plenty of other protest signs, etc., I've literally picked them up off the ground. One of my favourites comes from outside Flinders Street Station, just like left there. But we won't go there. But this one here, because its owner was there, etc., she was never going to dump it. And so I just introduced myself and brought her around. We made an arrangement for her to come to the collection store, and she did in time. She came around, and having the collection on the 4th floor of Town Hall, where nice red carpet, looks good, people can actually see, if they are would-be donors, they can see that their item will be really valued and looked after from a conservation point of view. And so, yeah, she got on board.
I love that room. It is only tiny, but the signs are absolutely fantastic. And it's really, to me, politics of the streets. Yeah. And that's something I really love about our city. Yeah. Now, we've got to move along a bit because we're running a bit behind. Okay. But I really... for everybody out there who loves photography, I got to understand that Melbourne is the home of photography in Australia. There are fantastic photographic collections held here in Melbourne, and the city of Melbourne's is impressive. And it captures so much of city life. Eddie?
Yeah, there's a lot to photograph. We've had great photographers here in Melbourne. And yeah, we have a very broad range in the collection. These ones here, Angus O'Callaghan is a photographer who, sadly, he passed well into his 90s, only a couple of years ago. So, yeah, he was sort of more like in his 50s or something when he took a series of photos in Melbourne from 68 to 71 that absolutely nail what the city was at that time. He then took them to publishers, and the publishers sort of said to him, I'm sure probably not even in the nicest possible way, we're not that interested in you because we've got... a Graham Kennedy's Melbourne in production, or a Bert Newton's Melbourne. In other words, these were books that were actually, you can still see them, giving a name to a bunch of photos. So essentially these great images lay under his bed in a box for decades before they then found their way out, etc. And yeah, we're delighted to have them in the collection.
The next slide, you're going to talk a bit about the photography here as well.
Oh yeah, so Andrew Chapman, he's just been working all over Melbourne for decades. It is worth having a decent look at the publication that young man, who I always think might be a close relative of Shane Warne's. Yeah, so that's outside the GPO, H&M, one of the great heritage listed buildings of Melbourne. And then just to continue on, there's a few here. Ruth Madison, she did some extraordinary work. We have her collection very recently. Viva Gibb, who unfortunately passed 2017. Her son and daughter have donated via the Melbourne Art Trust. I don't know if you want to say something about the Melbourne Art Trust, seeing as you used to be the supremo of it.
I did, when I had power.
Yeah.
It's an independent body that makes decisions about what we can collect, how we can fund it, and how we can otherwise take it into our collection. And we get some things that are donated and other things we need to commission or pay for. But it's important that we have a part of our organisation, I guess, an independent subsidiary that's considering these types of things to make sure that the collection continues to grow and reflect Melbourne.
Yeah, and look, it permits tax concessions, so people who would like.
Oh, well, we're getting very technical now, that's right. We did get that concession whilst I was there so that we could encourage more people to donate.
With the Viva Gibb photos, we've received about 200 of them. Basically, Viva Gibb operated not exclusively but largely around North Melbourne, and she truly captures the spirit of that suburb, the people there from the 1970s through till the early 80s, and it's going to make a cracker of a city gallery show coming up.
Now, a lot of the photos that we have in the collection are photos that we've taken as an organisation to fulfil our duties and roles around town, in my next life, I am going to be the pothole inspector. He looks so cool. And that was his role, to go and inspect and photograph potholes. I believe we have the largest collection of photos of potholes. Not anymore, in the old days, of activities inside Town Hall, and then Russell Street, I think that's Russell Street.
Yes.
Where we needed to do some work on the guttering, and so we have these fabulous photos of city life at the time, really taken as part of the day-to-day world of the city. And I just want to mention that the collection is available for research and for people that have a deep interest in a particular area, and it's all there available for you to access. And the photographic collection is probably one of the most popular and accessed parts of our collection.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move along. It is a working collection, as I said, and we also have, as part of the collection, one of my favourite rooms, I think I've said that about just about every room so far, is a reflection of the fact that we design things at the City of Melbourne. The commitment to beautiful urban cityscapes and landscapes lives very much at the heart of the organisation, and so we've always had these incredible people in our team who are able to design stuff. That's the most technical word I've got for it. But it is bins and it's seats, and I'm really encouraged, and streetlights, one of my favourite there on Swanston Street. Please think about this as you're walking around town, because a lot of thought goes into how urban furniture is designed so that you can still have a good experience around our city. And in fact, not even noticing them is probably a testament to that as much as appreciating them. There's a room where you can see a number of things that have been designed by our team. But this aspect of the collection is one of the most visited by international urban designers who really regard Melbourne so highly for its urban design capability and commitment over the decades. Now, Eddie's going to talk about one of the most important things that we've designed, also reflecting change in the city over the years.
Yeah, look, I think that if you look at that one on the left there, the one-person urinal, it does really speak to the different kind of gendered experiences of the city. So that was designed for men, or gentlemen as it says somewhere, and you'll also see it helpfully offers the advice, please adjust your dress before leaving. So it was very much, it was not a one-person urinal, it's a one-man urinal. And just to say that whole experience, gendered experience, was sort of completely different for men and women. And indeed, nobody knows this subject better than Professor Andrew May sitting in the audience over there. Slowly cities provided toilets for both men and women. Department stores started providing them, the lounges, which were extremely popular. And it just goes to this sort of central point that design of individual elements in a city really do add up to different experiences of that city.
It's amazing. The public purse. If we go to the next slide, thank you. The public purse is a reflection of how we spend our money, which is a reflection also of the values, our priorities, and what's important to our community. And I am so pleased that in Melbourne, public art has been always a priority for our community. Within the collection, there are the maquettes of public art that you will see around the city, and I challenge you to come in and have a look at those maquettes and to be able to pinpoint where they are around the city. I know the city pretty well. I couldn't do all of them. I had to go and find Edmund Fitzgibbon, who's the gentleman in bronze on the top shelf there. He was the town clerk CEO for 35 years back in the day, and he organised for a statue of himself. I had no idea where it was, but it is actually in St Kilda Road. So next time you're near the NGV intersection, have a look for Edmund. But the maquettes are absolutely fascinating, and the top photo there is the public purse, one of my favourite pieces. It's in the hustle and bustle of Bourke Street Mall. People walk by it all of the time, but it is a premium busker site as well, and one of my happy times is when I see people perched on our public purse to listen to music and to appreciate artists. But Eddie, talk us through maquettes, because I didn't know a lot about them.
Yeah, just momentarily on public purse, we always say in the collection that it's absolutely one of our favourite pieces, because in all the years I've been at the City of Melbourne, we've had to spend precisely nothing on its upkeep, which is quite bizarre, actually.
It's all those bottoms.
It's all those bottoms, yeah. But look, yeah, maquettes are absolutely fantastic, because, I mean, if you can sort of see that with this one here, I expect many of you will know the Great Petition artwork that's at the top end of the city there, that work there. And now if we back up, it was actually modelled on the left-hand side. There's the monster petition with 30,000 signatures calling for women to get the vote. And so the artists Susan Hewitt and Penelope Lee set about how can we do something with that, and they came up with that concept there, landed it on the table of the commissioning body, and then they sort of like, you know, engage with it. Wow. But what I love about maquettes is the way they sort of always have a bit of a school project sense about them. They're rough, they're ready, and you can actually see the artists thinking with them.
They're so good. I had a very happy experience when I got to Town Hall, when I realised that I would get to choose things that could be in my office. I did have some maquettes, I loved them so much. But one of my favourite pieces speaks to this slide. Many of you may have had a similar experience, but public art first came into my consciousness in that very controversial debate about the vault, which quickly became known as the Yellow Peril. And council and the public rejected this piece of magnificent public art. It was a reflection of our community at the time, and of course Ron Robertson-Swan had to deal with the indignity of that debate, and a council that decided ultimately to put it into storage. Of course, the vault, also known as the Yellow Peril at the time, has gone from something controversial to a piece that's absolutely beloved, and it's down near Acker. And it really speaks, I think, also to the way public art creates provocations, challenges and debate in our community, which is a good thing, I think, as long as councils still have courage of their conviction to go forward with public art. But one of the reasons we've got this up is because Eugenia Lim, who's a fabulous artist of Vietnamese heritage, did this piece next to it called The Yellow Peril, which I had in my office. It's a photograph composition onto one of those blankets that they provide for refugees when they find them
Emergency blankets.
Emergency blankets. And she has cleverly put this photographic composition onto it with the vaults known as the Yellow Peril, with her parents in front of it, and a very strong...
Newly arrived,
a very strong reflection of the emotions and the debate of immigration at the time. And to me, I still get shivers when I look at it. I just love it so much, and I was lucky enough to have that in my office for the 6 years that I was at Town Hall. And I think, again, public art can evoke lots of different emotions in everyone and send some very clear messages about what's important to us at different times in our dynamic evolution.
Just to super quickly say, Heritage Council registered Vault just a year or two ago.
That's right.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah. Good
It's
call.
not going anywhere. Now, it is important that we touch on Aboriginal Melbourne and the fact that we've only lately come to collecting and commissioning work. Eddie?
I think it became recognised sort of around 2000 that the collection, City of Melbourne, held absolutely nothing to acknowledge the traditional owners of Naarm/Melbourne. And essentially there isn't historical material that's available, and instead all of the energy was put into the acquisition of works by urban-based Aboriginal artists with a kind of a particular kind of preference, I guess, for Kulin artists, but generally urban-based, And so started out with an acquisitions panel and some money, and that panel really has done fantastic work with it. There are many people, just to quickly mention our current panel, Ryan Johnston, Phip Murray, and Hannah Presley, an Aboriginal curator. Those three have just done wonderful work for many years.
Certainly have, and I know that we will get those back, but our next part of speaking about the collection of Aboriginal Melbourne, our Aboriginal Melbourne collection, is to say that we have made sure that we have a lot of the collection in prominent places throughout. I mentioned Namnagu earlier, so our public buildings, and also throughout Town Hall. The picture that was up there a moment ago, those items are in a relatively new part of Town Hall. When you come in, it's a place of democracy, and we thought it was really important to reference the Indigenous heritage of the city in a space that really reflects democracy and the way that we govern since the city was formed back in the 1860s. So a bit of a juxtaposition, thank you team, but important to have reflections of both. One of the photos that'll come up shortly is that we had Mandy Nicholson, who is an amazing artist and elder in the Wurundjeri people. She did some art for us that we worked with the Australian Tapestry Workshop to turn into a welcoming piece as you walk into that democratic space in Town Hall, and it makes an important statement in Wurundjeri language to say welcome. It also references the past, the present and the future, and it was a fantastic project to do with the Australian Tapestry Workshop, a place that I knew nothing about in South Melbourne. Absolutely brilliant people and work happen there as well. And there it is, and there we are at the cutting ceremony. Actually, we'll keep going, some years ago. Now, in that space, if you walk into Town Hall from Swanston Street, it used to be dark and dingy, but we have now turned it, as I said, into a place of democracy where we have our Future Melbourne committee meetings. And this has been really important because those meetings are where members of the public can come to make submissions, and we have debates on issues that are important to you. It's a relatively new space because we used to have those meetings in a cramped room upstairs, difficult for people to access and really difficult to operate. But by creating a new space, far more welcoming and really putting the community's presentations and submissions and participation in the work that we do at Town Hall front and centre to Town Hall. Now that leads into council chamber, and we hopefully will get some photos of that in a moment, but we can talk about it, which is where we do formal council business. And when we talk about colonial heritage in Melbourne, it's the most magnificent example of how British design came into Australia and in many ways was imposed. There were strict rules about how public buildings could be structured, designed, and the sorts of materials that could be used. But we feel really lucky at Town Hall that in amongst those requirements, we actually went for something a bit different, didn't we, Eddie?
Yes. You're speaking here now of commons or upstairs? Upstairs, yeah. Look, yeah, I mean, upstairs is, put it this way, it's entirely of its date, but in a good way, dating to 1910, so it's reflecting that new, essentially, here we are. So, just after Federation, and with that, it includes wholly Australian materials and craftsmanship. And so if we flick through there, you can see the gum nuts, the eucalypt leaves and so on. It is just like really quite lavish. To first walk in, you may not sort of see this. It just sort of reads as a much more kind of standard kind of setting. Opulent, but standard. But yeah, it did actually have this Federation arts and crafts sort of work that went into it, including, I mean, I never knew, for example, that New South Wales produced marble. I'd always thought all marble was imported. But yeah, every single element of the decoration is Australian.
It's Australian, and it was the first time in a public building that we were allowed to use an Australian motif. Prior to that, all references were back to our UK history, our British history, so it's fairly remarkable for that reason as well. Now we're getting ready for some Q&A from you, but we did want to show you some fantastic photos, if we can, of Town Hall, how it's changed over the years. And not just in terms of the facade changing, a portico was added, but also now we use it in a very dynamic way to really light up the city. And of course, inside we've made it really a place for you. It is the People's Town Hall. It is a public building, and everything you've seen in the photos tonight you will see in the collection or on the walls of City of Melbourne buildings. And that dynamism of the collection really reflects the attitudes, the values, the priorities, the capability and the capacity that we have had and will continue to have as a city. And we'd love you to engage with the collection, because not only is it yours, but we would love you to be able to take your own stories away and feel your sense of pride over those elements of the collection.